Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 216, Mantine Overboard. The episode begins with Ash and the gang having arrived in a town called Ogi City, and running through the town at immense speed, as Ogi City was the location of the next ferry that would take them to Red Rock Island, where the World Cup was located. They were rushing because they saw that the ferry was about to depart, and they were still relatively far away from it, due to, as Misty complained, Ash having an extremely big breakfast that morning, so he took more time in the Pokemon Center than they were allowed if they were planning to catch this ferry. Unfortunately, when they almost arrived at the port, Brock noticed that the ferry was now far away at this point, and when Ash and the gang finally did arrive at the port, they had realized that the boat was too far away for them to jump on, even when they called for the ferry to come back, since the captain obviously couldn't hear them due to him being inside the ferry. Just then, a local sailor then arrived at the port, coming in from his sail for the day, and Misty questioned him on when the next ferry going to Red Rock Island would arrive, and unfortunately for Ash and the gang, the sailor confirmed that the ferry to Red Rock Island only came back to the port once a day to pick up new passengers, so Ash and the gang would have to wait until tomorrow if they wanted to use this ferry. This leaves Ash and the gang extremely depressed as they decide to sit down by the port and sulk at their terrible luck. A woman then notices Ash and the gang pitying themselves and wondering what they were going to do to pass the time, and goes up to them with some scuba gear in hand to ask them what was upsetting them. Misty tries to explain the situation regarding the ferry, but Brock interrupts her as he was now entirely cheered up due to seeing a beautiful woman and flirts with her immensely, introducing himself and asking the girl to introduce herself, and she does so, introducing herself as Luca, someone who studies Pokemon that live underwater. Hearing that she studies Pokemon, Brock instantly takes the chance to flirt with her again, requesting to be her assistant, which leads Misty to pull him away as usual, telling Luca not to worry about Brock's incompetence, and scolding Brock for potentially scaring away Luca with his advancements. With Brock dragged away, Misty finally gets the opportunity to finish her explanation of what had happened with the ferry situation, and this leads Luca to offer to take Ash and the gang to Red Rock Island using her boat so that they didn't have to wait for the ferry, leading Brock to become very grateful, not asking any questions as he flirts with her more, now wanting her more than ever, grabbing a hold of her hands. As for Ash, he was a bit skeptical of why Luca would suddenly agree to take them to their destination, with Luca justifying that she had to go out to sea to do something anyways, so she might as well help out Ash and the gang along the way. As Luca leads Ash and the gang off the port to her boat, Team Rocket are spying from the ocean in their Magikarp sub. That's right, guys, the Magikarp sub was back. They must have very quickly gave up on the Tentacruel sub after it failed in the Nurse Joy episode. Anyways, Team Rocket spot Luca with Ash and the gang and question what her motives were, deciding to follow Ash and the gang and Luca, who were now getting on Luca's boat, to find out. Luca admits that the boat was old and certainly didn't look very fancy, but assured Ash and the gang that it would get them to Red Rock Island. Ash and the gang didn't care about the status of the boat, they just hoped that it worked. When Ash and the gang arrive on the boat, they immediately go out to the deck and spot Luca's diving gear, examining it. Once they were done with this, they went inside of the boat's cockpit, where they spot several pictures by the wheel, one of them being a picture of a map of the ocean, and the other one being a portrait of the man. Ash and the gang question what was the meaning behind these pictures, particularly taking an interest in the map of the ocean, as the map of the ocean had an X marked on it. So Misty suggested that the map of the ocean was actually a treasure map leading to a specific spot. Luca clarifies that Misty was technically right, stating that the X on the map marked a spot where a ship had sunken that had a valuable item in it. Ash and Brock questioned what this valuable item was, being vastly intrigued by this, as they obviously believed the valuable to be something typical like gold or something like that, or maybe even crystals, diamonds, or pearls, but Luca clarified that the valuable item that the map led to probably wouldn't be considered valuable by most people, but it was valuable to her, being a silver feather. Ash and Brock eagerly want to find out what this silver feather was, but Misty jumps in first, instead inquiring about the other picture by the boat's wheel, being the picture of the old man. Luca revealed that the picture was of her great-grandfather, who had been known for his research of water Pokemon in the sea, and he had passed his job on to the future generations, including herself. She also further clarifies that she currently had a lot of his old research up in the attic of her boat. Ash and the gang then inquire about what this research was, leading Luca to link it back to the Silverwing, stating that one day, while she was cleaning the attic and looking through her great-grandfather's old stuff, she had found the map to the Silverwing that Ash and the gang had just saw, along with the journal, adding that the journal was how she discovered that the map led to the Silverwing, as the journal spoke of the Silverwing and explained that it was said to have a link to a mysterious Pokemon, and may allow someone to find it. Hearing about the mysterious Pokemon yet again made Ash remember the mysterious Pokemon that they had encountered back when they first entered the Whirl Islands. Remember when they were caught in that whirlpool? Yeah, that one. Ash asks Luca if the strange Pokemon that he had saw earlier could have been the same one linked to the Silverwing, with Luca claiming that she didn't know for sure, as the journal had very vague details, stating that the journal was more so about her great-grandfather's journey to find the Silverwing than it was the Silverwing itself. Essentially, Luca's great-grandfather had found out about the sunken ship that had the Silverwing in it, and he decided to go on an expedition in his own ship to go find the Silverwing. The journal stated that he had managed to get to the sunken ship and retrieve the Silverwing, but right as he was beginning to make his way back, his ship was unfortunately caught in a storm, and this caused his ship, the ISS Raspberry, to sink down along with the Silverwing. She then states that she had spoken with her grandfather and father, and both of them had confirmed the fact that her great-grandfather never returned, meaning that her grandfather had been lost at sea for a very long time at this point. After finding out about her grandfather, Luca had went to go search for him and the Silverwing, but had had no luck since, which disappointed her to no end because she really wanted to prove her great-grandfather's story about the Silverwing. Misty encouraged her to not give up, and Luca clarified that she hadn't by any means, as the entire reason why she was planning to go out to sea today was to investigate some more, stating that after reading through the journal a couple more times and making a few calculations after doing some diving around the water, she determined where the X marked on the map should be located, comparing the descriptions of locations that her great-grandfather had passed with locations that she had dived to. Much to Luca's surprise, as she thought that not many people would see the value of a silver wing, Ash and Brock were very, very intrigued by the silver wing and offered to help Luca find it. Luca greatly appreciated other people having the enthusiasm to find it, so she agreed to let Ash and Brock help her, stating that they would need to go underwater to find it. Meanwhile, Team Rocket had indeed followed Ash and the gang and Luca in their Magikarp sub, and were using a listening device attached to it to eavesdrop on their conversation. James was instantly intrigued at the prospect of finding the Silverwing, as were Jessie and Meowth. However, James suggested that Team Rocket dive down and retrieve it before Ash and the gang did, but Jessie and Meowth didn't agree with this idea, stating that they should instead let Ash and the gang and Luca do the work for them, and then steal the Silverwing once Ash and the gang had found it. James still wanted to get it of his own merit, but Jessie and Meowth managed to convince him, with Jessie stating that minimal effort with maximum profit was Team Rocket's way, and Meowth stated that if they waited for Ash and the gang to get the Silverwing first, then they could also steal Pikachu. Ash and the gang then questioned how they were going to go down to where the Silverwing was located, with Luca clarifying that they would dive down with some of her spare diving gear. Although she clarified that she only had one spare set of diving gear, leading Ash and Brock to fight over it for a little bit, but eventually Brock conceded and let Ash take it. So, Ash and Luca were going to dive down to find the Silverwing. Misty, however, was worried that Ash and Luca would get lost, but Luca assured them that they wouldn't, as she then sent out 3 Magikarp into the water, explaining that the Magikarp would help them swim and be their guides. Brock wished he could come as well, but wished Ash and Luca luck in finding the Silverwing, while Misty was still concerned, despite Ash and Luca having the guides, and warned them to be careful. As Ash and Luca jumped into the water, Pikachu tried to follow, wanting to come along, but Brock stopped him, stating that it would likely be too dangerous, and stated that if he couldn't go, then Pikachu couldn't go either. Pikachu tried to protest, explaining that he wanted to go down to protect Ash from any dangers, but Ash assured Pikachu that he would be fine as he swam away with Luca, now fully underwater, as they each grabbed hold of one of the Magikarp to help them swim, as they dove deeper and deeper and deeper, finding many, many water Pokemon along the way, including more Magikarp, Tentacool, Shelder, Horsey, Chinchou, and some Remoraid, which they reported to Misty and Brock, who were keeping in contact with them through the ship's radio, clarifying that underwater really seemed like an entirely different planet due to there only being water Pokemon. Soon enough, Ash and Luca eventually come across a shipwreck, and after comparing it with some pictures in her great-grandfather's journal, Luca comes to the conclusion that this was in fact the ISS Raspberry, her great-grandfather's ship. Luca instantly sent her 3 Magikarp to go scout the ship and look for the Silverwing, but right as the Magikarp were about to enter the sunken ship, a Mantine approaches, guarding the ship and preventing the Magikarp from getting in. Ash wants to learn more about the Mantine, so he radios Misty and tells her to use his Pokedex that was back on the ship, and she does, and informs Ash of Mantine's abilities. While Ash was preoccupied with this, though, the Mantine had managed to scare the Magikarp away, since it was doing its best to guard the ship, and the Magikarp came rushing back to Ash and Luca, leading Luca to suggest that her and Ash return to the surface and think of a strategy to get past the Mantine so they can get into the ship. So, when Ash and Luca get back to the ship, they talk with Brock and Misty, and Luca suggests that they use her Magikarp as a distraction and then sneak onto the ship while the Mantine was dealing with them. However, Ash thought that if they were going to go for a distraction, then his Pikachu would be a better bet, since Pikachu had electric attacks that would be super effective on the Mantine, and could therefore injure it, which would definitely distract it. Pikachu was very happy at Ash's suggestion, finally being allowed to enter the water. Before Pikachu went in the water, though, Luca outfitted him with a mini set of diving gear that she happened to have, leading Brock to complain how she had a mini set of diving gear, but not a third regular piece, but Luca just ignored Brock's complaints, stating that she had made it in case she ever came across a non-water Pokemon who got stranded at sea and needed a flotation device. Without further ado, Ash, Pikachu, and Luca then dove back into the water, with Ash glad to have Pikachu by his side this time, and Pikachu busy admiring the ocean view. However, they then quickly approached the ship again, along with the Magikarp that Ash and the gang and Luca had still decided to send down. So Ash, Pikachu, and Luca then split up, with Ash and Pikachu going to distract the Mantine so that Luca could sneak in to the ship. However, before Ash can actually get Pikachu to shock Mantine like he had planned, Mantine goes to attack Ash and Pikachu first, so Ash and Pikachu focus on swimming away on the Magikarp. This still served as a distraction, though, so Luca was still able to enter the ship, and then came into a hall where she found 2 bright objects shining. As for Ash and Pikachu, thankfully, despite Mantine being the first one to attack, Pikachu was able to get the upper hand, as he was able to grab onto Mantine and hop on its back, and was about to use Thunderbolt on it to try and knock it out, but before he could, he was shot at by a water gun from a wild Remoraid, knocking Pikachu off of Mantine before it could get off its attack. To make matters worse, another Remoraid then appeared and sprayed Luca with water gun, sending her backwards. Luca then makes her way over to Ash and Pikachu to explain that she was just ambushed by a Remoraid, only for Ash and Pikachu to confirm that the same thing had happened to them. So, Luca suggests that she and Ash resurface to the boat and come up with a plan to deal with both the Mantine and Remoraid now, since the Remoraid were now a big obstacle as well. Ash and Pikachu agree and head back to the boat with Luca as Team Rocket was spying on them in their Magikarp sub, having watched the whole ordeal go down and becoming depressed that Ash and Luca hadn't retrieved the Silverwing for them. James and Meowth were also depressed at the fact that they wouldn't be able to go underwater and get Ash's Pikachu yet either, since Ash and Luca had just returned to the ship. However, Jessie stated that after seeing the Mantine's power and how it was able to shake off Pikachu technically, she stated that she believed Mantine was actually better and they should capture the Mantine instead, with James and Meowth eventually agreeing. Even Wobbuffet showed its agreement as it forcibly popped out of its Pokeball. Anyways, Ash and Luca arrived back on the boat and reported to Brock and Misty how they now had two obstacles to deal with, Mantine and Remoraid. This led Misty to suggest that if they had more enemies now, then they could use more allies, implying that she should join. Luca reminded her that she had no other scuba diving gear, but Misty retorted that she didn't need any because she was such an experienced swimmer, and put on her wetsuit. Also claiming that her water Pokemon would be useful as well, since they also didn't require any scuba diving gear, so they could be used as extra help for battling the Remoraid and Mantine. Luca worried that there would be no chance of getting the Silverwing, even with these water Pokemon, remarking how water Pokemon against water Pokemon could just end up resulting in a constant water gun clash, though Misty explained that her water Pokemon were likely far stronger than any wild one, as she sent out her Staryu and Corsola. Ash then remembered he had a water Pokemon he could use as well, so he sent out his Totodile. Seeing how most of the water Pokemon were out, Psyduck didn't want to be left out, so it forcibly popped out of its Pokeball. Forgetting, though, that it couldn't swim, so it splashed around in panic, not knowing what to do, as it was about to drown, but thankfully, Brock was able to save it as he threw out a lifesaver from the boat. Misty then ordered Brock to look after the ship, and look after her Togepi as well, as her, Ash, Luca, Pikachu, and all the water Pokemon dove down into the water yet again. As they approach the ship wreckage, they expect to have to fight Mantine and the Remoraid, only to find that the Mantine was already in conflict with Team Rocket's Magikarp sub, as Team Rocket had arrived to try and capture the Mantine, only for the Mantine to fight back. And it seems as though Mantine was winning, as it had managed to grab Team Rocket's Magikarp sub and tackle it many times. Luca doesn't hesitate to suggest that she, Ash, and Misty use Team Rocket's conflict with the Mantine to their advantage, utilizing it as a distraction so that they could sneak into the ship without Mantine noticing, thereby skipping the conflict with Mantine entirely. Ash and Misty acknowledge this good idea, and they all head in with their Pokemon to the hull of the ship, without any trouble, and decide to split up to cover more ground around the ship, meaning that Luca was by herself when she used the light on her scuba diving gear to spot an odd hole in the ship's wooden interior. When Luca examines inside the hole, she finds an entire group of little baby Remoraid, leading Luca to come to the conclusion that the Remoraid that attacked them earlier must have been the parents of these Remoraid, and they were trying to protect their young after seeing that Luca and Ash were trying to get into the ship. Of course, this still left the mystery of why the Mantine was guarding the ship, as it likely had no connection to the Remoraid. Luca notices that the little baby Remoraid were surrounding something and calls Ash and Misty over to help her retrieve it. However, before they could retrieve whatever the Remoraid were surrounding, Team Rocket tried their best to attack the Mantine, stopping the Mantine's attacks on them by ramming into it with their sub. However, the Mantine dodged, meaning that the sub went straight into the ship, causing even more damage to the already destroyed shipwreck. Although Luca, Ash, and Misty are startled by the rumbling caused by the crash actually works in their favor, as it causes all the baby Remoraid to scatter away, swimming out of the ship, thereby revealing what they were surrounding to be a chest. Luca quickly retrieves the chest from the hole, and begins to swim back to her boat with Ash and Misty, thinking that the chest may contain something valuable. However, before Ash, Misty, and Luca could get far, they encountered Team Rocket's Magikarp sub, which then played a projection of a recording of Team Rocket's motto so that they could do their motto while still inside the safety of their Magikarp sub, projecting the motto utilizing one of the ship's walls. And once the motto was done, Team Rocket quickly used a claw on the Magikarp sub to steal away the chest from Luca's grasp, and then begin to reverse their sub out of the ship, only to be stopped by Mantine, who attacked the Magikarp sub yet again by tackling into it, which Ash, Misty, and Luca noticed when they caught up to Team Rocket. However, despite the Mantine being able to beat Team Rocket with its tackles last time, it wasn't able to this time, as Team Rocket then deployed a tentacle to capture Mantine from their Magikarp sub, since Meowth had pressed a button. Mantine struggled to break free from the tentacle, but it couldn't. That was until the Remoraid came to Mantine's aid, specifically the two adult Remoraid, by using Water Gun to destroy the tentacle, freeing Mantine, and the two Remoraid then also pushed back the submarine with their Water Gun as well. Upon seeing this, Luca realizes that Mantine and the Remoraid lived in symbiosis, meaning that they protected each other from danger, even though they were different species. Also realizing that that was probably why Mantine was guarding the ship, since it wanted to help out its two Remoraid friends guard their young. As for Team Rocket, they were still reeling from the Remoraid's attack, with James suggesting to Jessie that they simply try and escape and give up on trying to capture the Mantine, but Jessie was not down for this. The attack just made Jessie want Mantine even more, also deciding to capture the Remoraid as well. So she decides to press another button in the Magikarp sub, which this time sends out a net to capture Mantine and the Remoraid. However, as soon as the net makes contact, Ash and Misty have Totodile, Staryu, and Corsola destroy the net, freeing Mantine and the Remoraid instantly. Jessie was annoyed and goes to fire another net, but Meowth and James assure her that it was probably it would just end up being useless, and suggest that they escape instead, reminding her that they at least had the treasure chest, which could be valuable enough to sell, so they might as well not risk losing it. Jessie listens to James and Meowth's demands reluctantly and begins pedaling as fast as she can along with James and Meowth so that they can escape. Unfortunately for Ash and the gang, Team Rocket's pedaling actually works, and they're unable to catch up with Team Rocket. That is until Mantine offers to help, wanting to stop them, so he offers Ash and Pikachu a place on his back, which they happily accept, as Ash and Pikachu then ride Mantine at an extremely fast pace in order to catch up to the Magikarp sub. Pikachu then jumps off of Mantine's back and onto the sub, and goes up to one of the sub's eyes and knocks on it, greeting Jessie and James, freaking them out as they knew what was coming up next, as Pikachu then uses Thunderbolt to send Team Rocket blasting off out of the water, destroying the Magikarp sub in the process. As a result of the explosion, the chest that Team Rocket was holding goes flying, and it was about to crash down into the water and get lost once again. But just then, Mantine jumps out of the water with Ash and Pikachu now on his back again, and uses the momentum of his jump to practically fly over to the chest, allowing Ash to catch it in his hands before it fell into the water. Misty and Luca then come up from the water as well with their Pokémon, allowing Ash to hand the chest to Luca, as Luca, Ash, and Misty all thank the Mantine and all the Remoraid for their help with getting the chest back, as the Mantine and Remoraid then swim away back deep into the ocean. But not before escorting Ash, Luca, and Misty back to the boat first. Once they get on the boat, Luca excitedly opens the chest, and inside was nothing but another box. So Luca then opened up the box, and much to her delight, the silver feather wing was inside, glimmering immensely, although it only glimmers even more in the sunset light, which everyone looks at in amazement, as Luca realizes that the silver feather wing must have been the light that she saw before in the ship. Luca was very excited to have the silver wing, as it would help her with her research towards finding out what the mysterious creature that her great-grandfather was talking about was, aiming to prove that her great-grandfather's claim was true and that the mysterious creature was real after all. The episode then ends as Luca drives the boat to Ash and the gang's destination, being Red Rock Island, where they finally arrive, meaning that Ash and Misty could now compete in the World Cup when it took place.